Hi, it's me. I'm in my room and I want to record a video. Um, I'm currently working on a compilation of what I consider to be the best quotes that I've come up with, the best thoughts that I've come up with, which will seem terribly self indulgent, but I believe that you should make your own reality happen. Um, I don't need to wait for somebody else to make a compilation when I can do it. And I like editing videos. I used to do it, but it's hard because I have to watch a lot of my stuff. And unfortunately, much of it is boring. But I can find the right quotes. I can put them into videos. I can put them into a compilation. I can, really spruce them up. Um, but I want to provide some more quotes, a lot of sound bites. I thought because I am more articulate now, I suppose, than I used to be. So I'm just gonna reiterate some of the stuff that I said, and yeah. So the central theme of my philosophy is what I call the jester. Of course, this comes from old medieval times when the jesters used to be, official workers in the kingdom's palace. And the jester's job was to make fun of the king and make fun of the kingdom. And I really took to this idea after I discovered that there's a connection between autism and jesters. There was a video on YouTube that talked about this. And I'm autistic. So that was a really, that was a light bulb moment for me. And that's when I developed the idea of the jester. The difference between a clown and a jester is that a clown is just stupid. The jester also tells jokes. The jester also makes fun of himself and other people. But he also does it in an intelligent way. He's sharp and intelligent. So I believe that most of us are clowns. Most people are clowns. They're idiots and stupid and silly. And our job is to become jesters. The jester for me is the ethical figure. The jester is my own ideal. I'm not interested in, oh, are you a utilitarian? Are you what kind of morals do you believe? I don't care about that shit. My morality is the morality of the jester. And the jester's job is precisely what it says on the tin. It's to make fun of the kingdom, make fun of the king. The jester's job is only this. He is not interested in being part of groups or being part of ideologies. Though he may be, nothing says that he can't be. But on a fundamental level, his job is to make fun of everything around him, the society around him, to hold up a funhouse mirror before society, to shove their face in the mirror, to make them see how silly they look. This is the fundamental and the only obligation of the jester. It doesn't have any other obligations. So technically, it doesn't need to be a good person by conventional standards. I'm not interested in building a system of morality. Other people can do that. I'm not interested in these questions. How do you justify your morals if you're an atheist? I don't care. None of these questions really help. No invocations of God or ethical systems help. I consider them all made up. We should make up our own values. We should make our own world happen. Many people would call that narcissism, but I respect that a lot. I think that when somebody makes their own world, their own little fictional world that they live in, if they make up their own words, their own vocabulary, their own unique way of looking at the world, I find it to be an ethical thing to do, because I value individuality, and I do not like groups, and I do not like society. And so this is not the same as the jester. The jester doesn't need to do any of that. The jester simply needs to be an individualist, in the sense that he needs to make fun of everything around him. And not just in a stupid way, but in a sharp way. He needs to provide arguments, maybe even in the form of jokes, but he needs to provide arguments. He needs to tell people, look, this is stupid, this is dumb, look how dumb and stupid you people are. And so the most obvious connection between the jester and our own modern world are comedians. That's the kind of connecting point. Most comedians suck. Most of them are not funny, not interesting. But there are some that are special, and I think that the perfect embodiment of the jester, the most accurate representation of the jester that I've ever seen, is George Carlin. And, he said too, when people gather in groups, they become dangerous. They start to wear funny hats, make lists of people they don't like. They go insane. I mean, the reason why people join groups is because they're fearful. And when they join the group, they become fearful of other people who are not in the group. So they become dangerous on top of that. And we see this all around us. We see this with religions, with political ideologies. People become idiots who repeat the words of their religion, repeat the words of their ideology without even knowing why they say what they say. They don't really believe it on a deep level. The heart is not in it because the heart is just borrowed. The heart is stolen from them. And so I have this idea of the gate of authenticity. Suppose you take someone from today, and he will have all kinds of beliefs. Maybe he's a progressive, maybe he's not. But take him and put him down 50 years ago. Put him down, time travel him back, beam him back to another world. And then see if he retains his beliefs. If he does retain his beliefs, then he is authentic, he is a real individual. If he doesn't, then he's just a product of his environment. He's a joke, a clown. What some people would call NPCs, but my word would be they're clowns. And so the job that we all have on my philosophy is to go from clowns to jesters. Society, the whole point of society is to take your authenticity away. Society always turns you into something that you're not. You cannot be authentic and be a societal subject because you don't make your own world happen. Every word you know, they taught you those words. Your ethics, the way you behave, it was all taught to you. And your job is to unlearn what they taught to you and to create your own world. By doing this, you become honest. You become authentic. You become, and then you may become a jester. You may not. You can be authentic and not be a jester. But to me, that's the highest ethical value. Or that's the highest ethical person. The jester. The only way to become a jester is through honesty. So I believe that honesty, sincerity, authenticity is the highest value. And it's that value that you have to use to become a jester, to embody honesty and authenticity in a profound way. Sometimes philosophers ask, this stupid question of what's the highest value? Is it rationality? Is it love? Is it love of God? And my answer is, it's honesty. Honesty is the highest value. Because I can't imagine an ethical act that is done dishonestly, or an ethical statement made dishonestly. And the counter argument you might make to this is, what about if you're hiding Jews in your attic? The Nazi comes, the SS officer comes, surely you're gonna lie to the officer. But notice something, that lying is not the same as honesty. Because what matters in honesty is your intention. Lying is just a semantic thing. It's just a word or a series of words. But authenticity, honesty, is a feeling. So you can lie to the officer and still be honest, still be authentic. Because what motivates your lie is an honest feeling that you want to help the Jews in your attic. So the lie is only a semantic lie. Authenticity is something deeper. That would be my counter argument to that. But I think we all know fundamentally that the philosophy of authenticity is right. When you're faking yourself, you know there's something wrong. How could you be ethical if you're pretending to be something that you're not? And that's why I defend authenticity. I think it exists, I think it's real, and I think it's what lies below societal impositions. That's why I don't believe that society can ever meet with authenticity. You might tell me that, well, we can have an honest society, we can have a society of people that are honest. But that's not reality. In reality, the function of society is to take you and to assemble you into something that you're not. It creates you. Like, if you know about Japan, you know that Japan is very different from the US, let's say. Very different culture. So those children are Japanese children. They bow before they, when they cross the street or something. And their job is to unlearn what they've been taught and to really come to their own senses. Unless they do that, they're just cogs in a machine. They aren't honest. They're not ethical. It's not ethical if you bow down just because you've been told to bow down. I think that's why we don't like slavery, for example, or rape. Why? Because we don't like dishonesty. You shouldn't work for a dishonest reason. You shouldn't work because you've been told to work. You shouldn't have sex because somebody told you that you have to have sex. There's an innate desire for us to be honest. We want to break through the glass ceiling of dishonesty. We want to tell inappropriate jokes to each other. We want to really get to know each other. We feel something terrifying about inauthentic things. Maybe that's why we don't like human-looking things. We don't like. A lot of people don't like dolls. But one thing nobody likes is things that appear human that aren't. And it's because they mimic. We don't like mimics. There are horror movies about that sort of stuff. We all feel the need to be honest. So I believe honesty, authenticity is really the most valuable thing that can be, because it underlies everything else that you could possibly do. That's why I believe in honesty. It's been bothering me what I said about lying, because in the previous section of this video I theorized about maybe it's okay to verbally lie if it means that you mean it, but I don't think that's quite right. I think I thought about it, and the only way that I've been able to defend lying, being dishonest verbally or otherwise, is if the opponent is also lying. So if you're in Nazi Germany and you're hiding the Jews, it's still dishonest to lie. Even if it's a verbal lie, it's still, the verbal lie is still connected to your emotions. So you can't easily separate them. And so I've come to the conclusion that the reason why it's okay to lie in that circumstance is because the Nazi is also lying. In that their entire worldview is based on propaganda, delusions about their own superiority. And so if they're lying, you can lie, because your lie is a more honest lie. You're lying, but you're not lying for some superficial reason or some nefarious reason. You're lying with the honest intention of saving people. And there's something a lot more honest about that kind of lying than there is about the Nazi lying. That's the conclusion that I've come to. I mean, people already have a name for this. It's called a white lie versus a black lie. So maybe we could apply that distinction here and say that if you lie in a circumstance that is already predicated on lies because you want to end the lie, in this case, the lie of Nazism, that might be a lie if you do it dishonestly, but it's a white lie. But I still don't think that you can lie and be honest, even if it's a verbal lie and you still mean it. I don't think that works. There are so many things I wanted to accomplish, and because of the nature of my personality, I just haven't been able to do it. I have no energy these days. I'm sleep deprived all the time. I tried to record videos just yesterday, but it just didn't work. So I wanted to say that I'm sorry that I couldn't be more useful, because I don't know how long I can stick around and do this. But I wanted so much more, and I think I had so much potential. And unfortunately, you're not just the mind, you're a body. And so even if your mind is filled with ideas and ideals, oftentimes your body just doesn't let you do it. So I don't know if the mind is separate from the body. I suspect it isn't. But whatever the mind is, it clearly operates the body. Which is very strange, because you would think that if it wanted something, it could get away from the body. It could control the body in ways that's useful for it, but it doesn't seem to be doing that. Like you want to sleep, but you can't. You can't sleep enough. And you would think if, the mind is in control, then it could do something about it, but it can't. So the mind is kind of just a CPU unit or motherboard for the body. But it can't defeat the body. It can't tell the body what to do. So even though my head has always been full of ideas and ideals, ever since I was a kid, I've never stopped dreaming. I've always had gazillions of ideas, many of which I implemented. Most of them failed, some of them worked. But I've always been very industrious. I've always had a hunger for trying to accomplish something. Even now. But the body just doesn't work. Lately it's been nothing but depression, anxiety, fear. Like I had another phone, and the quality of it was so high. When I saw my face, it ruined my day. So I like staying inside in the dark with with the worst quality camera. Um, and I tried very hard to record addendums to this video yesterday, but I just couldn't, and I've been putting it off for weeks, but it just doesn't work. I wake up and the energy just isn't there. I just have headaches, and it's just not there. And it makes me sad because the real potential in me people don't see, right? It's tragic that my head is so filled with ideas and ideals, but nobody cares. Like, they don't see it. So to them, the people around me who know me, I'm just a kind of a fat, unemployed piece of shit, whereas in reality, the situation is so much more complicated, Like, I have my own money, but they don't know that. My mind is always functioning, always working, but they don't know that. And I can't let them know. Because of my anxiety, I can't talk. I don't like get-togethers. I don't like social functions. I have no friends. Out of personal choice, really, but technically it's not a choice because I didn't make myself be this way. But so I just been thinking about one of the core themes of my philosophy, I suppose, is potential, and how terrible it is that people's real potentials are almost never used. There's a dishonest ledger. People only see a part of you and only register a part of you. They send you to school, they send you to work, and somehow that's all you are. The fact that you're funny doesn't increase your paycheck. The fact that you're kind doesn't increase your paycheck. What you did before your job doesn't increase your paycheck. If you played the clown all your life and made people laugh, if you served as a punching bag for people, and I've said before this fucked up part of, what if you were abused, bullied and assaulted and so on? Well, even that produces value to the person that abused you. So in a fucked up way, that should be part of your ledger too. And then also the things that you don't do. That's another blind spot of society, which is that society only sees what you do, but it doesn't see what you don't do. And in reality, what you don't do is just as important as what you do. It could be that people who do many things are actually worse people because they don't just contribute positive numbers, they also contribute negative numbers. Not just pluses, but minuses. So when you add up the values, they end up worse than yours. I think it's one of the first things I ever said on this channel. which is that I had this idea of the philosophy of giving up, which is not the way I would put it today. It's too passive and pessimistic. I would just call it the jester and honest, and the philosophy of authenticity. Um, so there's been a shift, but still, that I think monks, Buddhist monks who meditate all day and don't eat meat, don't work, don't do anything. I think that's the attitude. Those people are a lot better than people who run around claiming they're worth something because they work. They're people who participate in the world. They work, they have cars, they have kids, they have a public life, private life. They cheat on their girlfriends, they cheat on their wives, they cheat on their boyfriends. The average person breaks the hearts of a lot of people, right? Because they break the heart of a lot of people because, relationships don't last. You leave all kinds of scars on the person. Now, the person who's alone and doesn't do anything, the passive individual, the monk, the neat, the hikikomori, actually is a lot better because he doesn't pollute as much. He doesn't have kids, so he doesn't create more suffering for no reason. He doesn't perpetuate what in AOT, in Shingeki no Kyojin, they call the endless cycle of hate. The endless cycle of hate. That's what AOT is about. So it's one of my favorite anime. I wanted to add that too. Even George Carlin said, like, show me a guy who's sitting on his couch all day jerking off, and I'll show you a guy who's not causing any trouble. The philosopher Blaise Pascal said something similar. Every problem of mankind arises because men are unable to sit quietly in their chambers. So people have realized this. They don't understand that there's real power in passivity. But passivity is also not quite good enough if you want to defeat the enemy, right? The enemy is not passive. So, George Carlin said he had this bit about voting. And he said, well, I don't vote because it's pointless. I stay home, I jerk off, and at the end, at least I have something to show for it. And he also said, well, if the wrong guy wins, it wasn't his fault because he didn't vote for him. But I'm not quite sure that argument is good enough. Because it seems to me it was a good idea to vote against Trump, for example, because obviously he's a lunatic and the people that are in his cabinet are lunatics and the people that support him are lunatics. They're all religious fucking nut jobs. I made those arguments before. The worst thing about Trump is not so much his policies, but his personality. The fact that he diminished the authority of authority. And we do need authority, even though I don't like it. On a practical level, we do need it. It's better to have better authority than worse authority if you're going to have it, right? So I do believe that you should do something. And of course, I've given you what you should do personally. That's my personal idea that you have no reason to accept other than because you want to. Because you feel that it's the right thing to do, but I can't justify it. I don't know. I don't know how to justify it. Do you want to be fair? Do you want to be empathetic? If you do, then you should be a jester. And if you don't want to be a jester, then do something else that's useful. But the point is, better to do something that is useful. But that should only be done in such a way that doesn't perpetuate society, doesn't perpetuate civilization, doesn't advance civilization. Because, as you know, if you're watching this, I've made several arguments that progress is not real progress. The more technology you have, the more, the bigger the population is, the more advanced society is, the more educated people are, the worse the outcomes become, up until a point. Of course, when the fertility rate drops enough so that the population is no longer growing but diminishing, then the danger also will diminish. But it's the technology that bothers me, right? We just don't know how far technology can go. Maybe people will be able to make clones, You won't need the permission of people to procreate. You can just make a baby out of some kind of machine. Artificial wombs, cloning, taking your consciousness, transporting it somewhere else. I don't know if that's possible, but if it is, shit. Traveling to other planets. I don't know if it's possible to terraform other planets, but if it is, shit. So, my opinion about, the anti-natalism debate, about what we should do in terms of future risk and all that stuff, is it's better to get rid of humans as soon as possible, but not in a violent way. It should be done voluntarily. Should be done honestly, I can say, because that's my principle. Part of honesty is not imposing what you want on somebody else. That's dishonest. That's the previous video, right? Rape, I think, is dishonest. Because you're not really winning the argument in any kind of honest way. You're not really persuading in any honest way. I don't like mimics. I think the Truman Show is similar to that, right? Mimes. Who the fuck likes mimes? Clowns always creep me out too, so but jesters don't, right? Curious. Maybe I'm right after all. Anyway, the point is that, yeah, I think that humans are dangerous. Mostly because of that technology. So it's true that the more educated and developed they are, the lower the fertility rate gets. Unfortunately, the technology also gets better. And like I said, we don't know how far that can go. I think it can go quite far. And I don't want to take that risk. I think it's better if we don't. I'm on Benetow's side on that. Yes. So the fundamental point I was getting at is how do you contribute something useful without perpetuating the wheel of society? Because I'm taking it as a premise here that perpetuating society is wrong because of other reasons that I've given. I might give more in this video. Just to sum it all up, I think it's wrong because society is unjust. Some people win, some people lose. That's not okay. I think it's dishonest. The whole structure of society is based on dishonesty. Imposing life is dishonest. Buttering you up, playing Play-Doh with people, right? It's essentially grooming you, right? The conservatives like to say, oh, the left is grooming kids. Everybody is grooming kids who is an authority figure. They groom them into a specific way of life. So it's all dishonest. It's not honest to have Japanese kids and British kids. It's just bullshit. They never chose to be that way. So society is dishonest. It's based on a bunch of fantasies that are all familiar to us. The fairy, the tooth fairy, the Santa Claus, all kinds of beasts and monsters that don't exist, gods that don't exist. That's another argument to make, but I'm about 99.9% sure. Actually, I'm 100% sure, but I could be wrong. So, ideas of justice, ideas of what makes you a big-ass winner in society, make a lot of money, that's bullshit. Legacy, that's bullshit. Your legacy dies with you when you die. People think they can outlive death because they have legacy. Your legacy dies with you. You don't get to bring your legacy with you to the grave. So, just people like you because of how you look. That's bullshit. Shouldn't it? Just there's something dishonest about that too. Just because you look better, somehow you get more opportunities and people trust you more. Fuck that. That's not honest. Who are the biggest celebrities in the world? They're almost always the dumbest, least deserving imbeciles that are popular. Even the intellectuals, it's almost always the dumbest ones that are popular and the most dishonest ones. Like that fucking imbecilic retard Peterson. People are stupidity just steams out of these people. So like almost everything about society is a lie. Or, the dishonest ledger that society doesn't see a complete picture of who you are, but it still judges you as if it did. Or even the idea I got from Dazai that society in some way doesn't really exist. It's just an idea in your head. Even though you experience it as if it was sacred. When you're a kid, you listen. When you break a rule, you feel like you really did something wrong, even though you haven't. So you can just keep, the false input, the fake politeness. It's just all bullshit. But the main reason, I suppose, is the suffering. That's where the antinatalist argument comes in. And when you think about it, this is a very simple, empathetic argument that only a psychopath would reject. There's nothing radical about this statement. That if the precondition for the existence of modern society is the suicide of 800,000 people a year, then it's not worth it. Why do we have the right to impose this suffering and torment and a tragic end, just so we can have a modern civilization that we call that we call home. I mean, a home is where you pay taxes. That I'm not saying I'm a right winger, I'm not, but it's like we don't even care about our own countries anymore. Why do we even bother with this stuff? We don't even care. We're just here to consume. People don't even care about their own countries. They don't give a shit. They don't care about anything other than, how can I survive to the next day? And that's not their fault, but that's the way it is. So, when you think about it, this is a very, almost nobody would die for their country these days. The polls I've seen on this. But somehow we should still die. Like, we're not even willing to die for our countries, but we should still die for what? Like, if you don't even care about the substance of your own country, then why do you keep perpetuating it? Almost nobody even likes society these days. They don't even like what society is. They don't trust each other. They don't care for each other. They don't know each other, So there's something bizarre about perpetuating it when you clearly don't even care about it all that much. And even if you did, it still wouldn't be justified for numerous reasons. All kinds of arguments you can make against it. Like the special pleading argument I've given. Maybe I repeat it here. Yeah, so it's just, the argument is so simple. It's not like, oh, you don't even have to be an antinatalist. Like, keep in mind, antinatalism is just a word. Words are just placeholders for feelings. It's vague bullshit. So it's not like I'm addicted to the ideology of antinatalism. I find all words and ideologies to be dishonest. Which I hope you can understand why when I make the compilation video. I think words always lie. They always gut reality and deprive reality of its substance. Like, there's clearly no such thing as an ideology in your head. Like, the antinatalism, you cut up your brain, you can't find the antinatalism in there. It's just a vague feeling that you have, that you identify with the word. But when you really think about it dispassionately, it's the omelette story. I haven't mentioned it before, but it's the omelette story. If other people's happiness means somebody else's pain, then fuck it. The argument is clear. Somebody's worst week is not, somebody's best week is clearly not nearly as good as somebody's worst week is bad. There's no way you actually believe that if you know how bad it can actually get. Right now, there's a genocide in Gaza, which is more and more being recognized as a genocide. People are actually starving. These people are having a bad week. Imagine limbs, flying all over the place. Just horrific pain, anxiety, fear. And somehow it's, some bourgeois family having a vacation in Croatia is worth it. Sorry, that was a giant book that just fell. It wasn't a ghost, it was just awkwardly positioned. I actually like ghosts. I like creepy shit. But I don't believe it. Uh, my dog died recently, but haven't seen him since, so I never seen a ghost. I guess, I used to actually make, when I was a kid, I used to make paranormal videos on YouTube. I don't think it was wrong. It was clearly just fun. Like, I wasn't really spreading. I wasn't really pretending it was real. Plus, I was a kid. Fuck it, leave me alone. But I've always had a fascination with creepy, weird, paranormal shit. I like it, but it doesn't mean I think it's true. Anyway, yeah, I'm just trying to get shit off my chest because I haven't done it in a while because I couldn't. So hard to get into it. But I guess one fundamental point to make is if you don't want to eat the shit sandwich, then don't shove it in somebody else's mouth. Very simple. I mean, it is a very simple antinatalist pessimist argument that the only reason people reject is because they're delusional. I mean, the logic is so crisp and simple. Or if you just take what humanity is, if it was any other species that had, a history as dismal as humanity, we'd have no problem saying, fuck them. But it's because it's us, then we carve out a special exemption for ourselves. And we say there's hope and don't be a nihilist, don't be, don't be anti-human, don't be this, don't be that. The Jordan Peterson retardation. And if it somehow became vogue to criticize the colonialist genocidal history of your own country, like that because you hate your country. Just the people are bizarre. They can't even be honest for like 5 seconds, You can't even admit that everything you have on the backs of other people. It's a pump and dump economy. Other people work so that you can have a comfortable chair. And you think you deserve it just because you bought it with money. So money is just a way of justifying everything you do. Well, it's money, so it's legal tender. So obviously I can essentially buy a slave in a roundabout way, You think you deserve it. You think you've earned what you have. Just because you were born into the right place at the right time. I'm a proud American. I'm a proud this, I'm proud that. And this is my country and this is my property. And, it's like you haven't even earned any of it. It was just given to you by specific historical circumstances. Like you see, like on a deep level, we're all just lying. We're all monsters who are lying. I mean, it's really abysmal, the reality. And everything they fucking say, these fucking conservative right-wingers and almost everyone else, really. Almost everything that comes out of their face is some kind of lie, some kind of trivial bullshit. Oh, he said the N-word. Let's cancel him. It's just, people can't possibly focus on anything that really matters. Almost their entire life is made out of bullshit. Slop. They eat from the trough. That's where the pigs eat, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna run out of space. So I don't know if I'm gonna. Well, I guess you'll see, but I did want to elucidate some of the concepts and thoughts that I've been having and put them in the compilation video. So we'll see how far I can make it. But I just wanted to record that it's been tough. Like the previous sections I recorded like a week ago, and because I haven't been able to do it again. Which just goes to show you that no matter how brilliant some people think I might be, life doesn't care. It's very depressing. I find that very depressing. Life doesn't care about you. There's no value because it doesn't care about the value that it supposedly produces. So essentially, life is no value, except on some utilitarian level, I guess. But it doesn't have any real moral value because utilitarianism isn't real value. I'll be back. Ooh, light. Back for another recording, as usual. It took me several days to get going again. Unfortunately, there's too many roadblocks on my way. I get insomnia pretty much every freaking day. I was thinking about maybe I'll have to get drunk before I go to sleep. But that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. And yeah, it's hard to record. Anyway, I still wanted to get some stuff off my chest. And, one thing I've been thinking about is this quip that's been on my mind for a while, which is say what you mean and mean what you say. Now, this is interesting because for the longest time, even though I had this idea in my head, like that makes sense, I couldn't figure out what the second part meant. The second clause of that. Mean what you say. Well, the first part I understand. Say what you mean. Okay, that means be honest. Okay, get that. But mean what you say, isn't that redundant? Isn't that the same as the first? And I realized, when you say mean what you say, what it means is that you understand what you say. So it's possible to say something and mean it without understanding it. But true honesty emerges when you really understand what you say. So like you have a girlfriend, right? Many of you have had the misfortune of dealing with this stuff. You have a girlfriend and you're head over heels for her, and you say, I love you. Now you can say what you mean in that circumstance, in that you can mean it, but are you really saying what you actually mean? Right? Are you really understanding what you actually say? Are you mistaking love for lust? You just wanna feel her tits and feel her ass? Is it possible to love even? I don't know. I'm sure it is. I know that it is. I actually have. But the point is to understand the difference between those two things. And so I wanted to extend what I was saying earlier about honesty. The real way to be honest is not just to say what you mean, but to mean what you say. You have to understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. Why do you say it? For what reason? And that eliminates any kind of dark lie. That cannot be a dark lie. That might be a white lie, but it cannot be a dark lie. Because a dark lie is something that you don't really understand. a dark lie is something that you don't really say for some honest reason. You don't really say for some benevolent reason. You're just saying it because, well, I'm horny, so I'm going to say I love you. But I don't think you can really mean that, you know? Or like if you're Nazi and you say, well, the Aryan race is superior. I don't think you can really say that and mean it. Because it's not true. It's bullshit. So the point is that even if you do have to lie, let it be a white lie, not a dark or a black lie. That's my addition to that. Oh, there's so many things to say, man. I don't know how long this will be, but obviously I'm the sort of person who makes long videos, not short ones. So sorry about that. I need it to be complete. So anyway, if you're still in the game, I thought I could extend the part about double nature, and then also about dishonest ledger. Right? These are very key concepts to me that I feel are very original. So I want to deal with them a little bit. So I found a similar idea recently, a while ago, to the double nature idea, right? And so the double nature idea is basically, what I mean by that is that there's an incongruence between what the individual wants and what society wants, right? And you always have to do things you don't want to do, things that make you unhappy, things that make you suffer. And the reason why I have to do it is because of society, because of societal pressure. And that itself is already a problem, but it becomes an extended problem when you have children. Then it becomes particularly nefarious. Because society, in a truly nefarious way, sets you as the parent against your own child, right? We all know, especially in Asian cultures, how strict parents are. They force their kids to study too much, to do chores, to do sports. Everything but fun is unallowed, pretty much. And so it's the parents' fault to an extent, but it also isn't, because it's society, the structure of society, this layered cake of society that allows that to happen. Society says, you want to be happy? You want to make your kids comfortable? Sorry, you can't do that, because you need to become civilized. And so it gives you license to torture your own kids, essentially. Of course, it differs from region to region how much you can torture them. If you can use physical punishment or not. But basically, in our societies, the fundamental rule is that you can sacrifice your own child to the function of society. You need to serve this bizarre entity that you can't even see, called the society. It's almost like praying to a god, and sacrificing your child to this god. And so the double nature is that most parents are not evil. They want to make their kids comfortable. They want to make their kids happy. And they themselves want to be comfortable and happy and pursue what is interesting to them, what is meaningful to them. But society at all points says, Sorry, you can't do that. You need to force your kid to study. You need to force your kid to do sports, to do chores, to teach him discipline. And so many parents go quite far in that. And so the double nature arises when the individual's interests are set against society's interests. And I think that's necessary, that always happens. And so, the excuse for that is why it's not, well, that's just the way the world is. But I really hate that excuse, this utilitarian excuse, because it justifies it by saying, well, it has to be that way, but it doesn't really have to be that way, right? It doesn't have to be that we have to do this, right? It's not either we do this or we fail. It could be that we just choose not to do any of this, right? We choose not to play the societal game. We choose not to have children, right? We say no to society. We say no to this imposition. We say no to the double nature, and we say, fuck you, I'm not doing it. And even if you do want to have kids, you can do this to a lesser or a larger extent. But in the end, society always wins. It's just not possible to live an isolated life where you do what you want and still be part of society. So having kids and living in society always involves subjugating yourself to society, being dishonest, right? Doing things you don't want to do that isn't in your nature, like being in school, right? Being in school and you see the sun outside and you say, well, I really would like to play outside. But the teacher says, no, you have to solve for X. Isn't that bizarre? To contradict your own nature in such a brutal way. Isn't it bizarre to have to wake up in the morning and do something you don't want to do? Be around people you don't want to be around? Isn't that bizarre? So, I've had this little quip about how when you consider people, let's say a priest or a school child or a father, do you think these people are really that happy to be priests? Are they really that happy to be school children? Are they really that happy to be a father? I think not. I think when you look at the average person, you see a lot of pain and misery and the feeling of being out of joint with their own nature, doing things they really don't want to do. There's a frown on their face. There's no smile on their face. And I would argue even if there is a smile, it's just because they're ignorant of the cruelty and the stupidity around them, right? So, it's just... The double nature, I think, is a really big problem because it fundamentally sets you against your own nature. It sets child against mother. It just sets child against father, right? I mean, how many fathers have beat their kids because of some shit related to school? Like, you got an F and now you get a beating. You got an F, now you get grounded, as if it was your fault and not the school system's fault, that they couldn't find a way to excite you. Because school doesn't do that. Most schools don't care about that. They don't set you out for inquiry. They crush you. They have to segment everything, class 1, class 2, class 3, 15-minute break, blah, 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 blah. Listen to your teacher, even if your teacher is an asshole. Get bullied. Obviously, you can't go to the principal's office if you get bullied, otherwise you're going to get bullied even more. the whole thing is just it's just a zoo. It's a zoo. If it was really honest, you wouldn't have to force it. Kids would go to school because they're interested in going to school, because they get to pursue their interests. That might still be bullying, I guess, that you can't really take that away. But at least you could get away from your bullies if there was a more open structure to school. Right, so I always had this idea that I always had this idea of like, for a while I've been thinking about this, which is that what if we had schools where kids could do basically whatever they wanted? What would that look like? And apparently there have been some schools who have done that, but not many of them have. But the point is, I would like to see a school where you could just do what you want, because that would be honest. Why don't we see what people would be like? Are we afraid of what they would be? Well, in that case, is it okay to lie? It's I just don't want to live in a dishonest society. Let me take a break. So the example I wanted to mention that is similar to my idea of the double nature is what's called the Abilene paradox. It's very simple. Suppose you're in a suburb, and it's a happy family, right? In the suburb on a summer day. If you're American, say it's in Georgia, say it's, I don't know, some place like that in the suburbs. And, the father says, we should go on a trip. And the mother says, oh yeah, let's do it. And the kid says, okay, let's do it. The father doesn't really want to go. Being the father, he only wants to please his family. The mom doesn't want to go either. Maybe she just wants to please the child. But the child doesn't want to go either. He's like, oh, fuck this. It's too hot, too damp outside. Fuck it. I don't want to disappoint my parents. And so they go on the trip. Neither of them, not a single one of them, really wanting to do it. But they do it because they think the others want to do it. So they only do it out of a kind of reciprocal obligation, but neither of them really want to do it. And double nature is very similar to this, in that we all live in this delusion. We all live not wanting to do what society tells us to do. We don't really want to get a job. We don't really want to study. We don't really want to do our taxes. We don't really want to do chores and do all that shit that we need to do, dress up in pretty clothes and go to a family function. The fact is, almost none of us want to do any of it. It's not natural for us to have weekends and weekdays. I mean, what the fuck is that? Somebody just made that up. Right? Somebody gets to tell us what to do and how many vacation days we can take, and nobody really wants to do this. Except maybe some lunatics who actually enjoy doing all this, but most people don't. Most people always try to escape the rat race. They don't really want to do it. But we all have to have this delusion in our head, this second layer, this cream, that colors everything we do, because we all know we live in a civilization. We've been brought up in this civilization. We've been made dependent on this civilization, so we cannot help but repeat the cycle. We don't know what else are we supposed to do. Drop out? Can't drop out. You have no resources to do it. Society has made you dependent on its security. So making escape pretty much impossible. The other escape is checking out of the game. But that's hard to do. And we don't necessarily want to do it either. And so that's very similar to this double nature idea that I had. One sec. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I can't get anymore. Oops. Yeah, I used to have the privilege of going on vacations, but when I go on a vacation, I can't really sleep. I get anxiety being far away from where I am, from where I live. So this is the first year of my life I haven't been on vacation. It just gets worse for me, And yeah, it makes me predisposed to pessimism, and I think about the consequences of, yeah, some people are happy, some people are running around, happy, joyous summer, happy, joyous moments. But fuck, there's this residue that you're not accounting for here, which is the miserable people. Such as me, many people who have it worse. It's terrible. And yeah, it just fills me with a lot of sadness to think about how, for a lot of people, there's just no hope. I mean, they're doomed, and there's no hope at all. And that circumstance is just so despicable by nature, I mean, if there was a God, he would give everyone a second chance, but many people don't have second chances, right? It's just a miserable feeling knowing that, well, you're just screwed. You're done. You're fucked. And you have to drag this body around, this broken body, this broken brain, and then you're done. You don't get to have a new opportunity. You don't get to have a new journey. I mean, and everybody ends up that way at some point. That should be enough to send anyone, running in the opposite direction. Somehow it isn't. I see mothers pushing strollers. And I think, well, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, they're so trivial. It's baby talk, you're going to lie to your kids, right? So this is another point that I've made, is that lying to your kids is a necessity. You betray your kids in that the first couple of years, you tell your kids, oh, there's Santa Claus and there's the Tooth Fairy, and everything is joyous, right? When you're young, everything is filled with joy and happiness. Lots of adventures, play. But then, when you get to be 7, 8, 9, 10, slowly your parents start stabbing you in the back because you start to get sick. You have to start school. You find out there's no Santa. You find out there's no tooth fairy. And so, you have to realize that your parents kind of fucked you over in that they offered you a sweet deal, what looked like a sweet deal. And you thought it would last, but it doesn't, right? It doesn't last. So I wanted to relay a personal story, which is that when I was like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, when one of my teeth became loose and fell out, which is of course normal, right? Because that happens to every kid. You have a bunch of teeth, they fall out, and then new ones grow, and so that's normal. And so I of course had this tooth fairy lie too, which is every time I went to sleep, I presented the tooth to my parents. Look, it fell out. They said, okay, we'll take care of it. You shove the tooth under your pillow, of course, and when you wake up, there's a coin under your pillow or whatever. It changes from country to country, of course. We always got coins, from what I remember. And one day, I decided to become a scientist. The first time I did a science experiment, and probably the last time. This is real science, not the stuff they teach you in school where you have to pretend to know or understand what's going on. This is actual science that you do on your own initiative. So one of my teeth fell out, and I decided to stay quiet about it. I shoved it under my pillow, woke up, found my tooth still there, my money nowhere. So I was pissed. I don't know what I was. Maybe surprised. So I went to my parents and I questioned them on the issue. So, look, I shoved the tooth under my pillow and there was no money. And I have no idea what they said. I don't remember what they said. Probably they said, you should have told us. But I think you could mark that as a kind of decisive point in a child's life. The tooth fairy point. The tooth fairy milestone, where there's a separation between your childhood and the adult you're going to grow into, where the magic goes away and reality comes into play. You start thinking like an adult. You start working instead of playing. You start measuring instead of just playing. You start running your own experiments scientifically and trying to reason and logic instead of playing make-believe. And so I have a huge attachment to childhood. I think childhood is by far the best part of your life. And I don't regard it as a good thing to grow up. I regard it as a tragedy. Because the innocence goes away. the play goes away, flees, draws away, and it's replaced by work, money, utility, function. And you're betrayed. You thought it would be easy, you thought it would be all play. And once you go through the tooth fairy stage, the dark truth is revealed. That there was no tooth fairy, there was no Santa Claus. It was all just a way to butter you up, to prepare you for what's to come. And it's nice of parents and society to at least maintain that innocence for a while. But the problem is that they stab you in the back. The problem is that they impose society on you. And you're no longer a child. You're an adult, or, proto-adult. And you start to get measured. And you start to get put into a box. And, you get your own ledger. That's where the dishonest ledger idea comes from. Like crypto is a ledger. That's the whole point of crypto, is that it's a public ledger. Basically, what a ledger is, it's a record. It's a record. It's a record of your information, like a bank statement, a financial statement is a ledger. Crypto is a ledger. It records all your transactions, what you bought, what you sold, all your crypto coins and your tokens, how much money you have in there. But the ledger is dishonest because society always reduces you to data, statistics, which is in and of itself insufficient to even scratch the surface of what you really are. You only get like 10% of 25% or something, but not even nearly enough. Because, you're always colored by your circumstance. You behave differently based on the circumstance, so they can never really get to know the true you. But I believe there has to be a true you. Otherwise, there wouldn't be this incongruence between your true feelings and what you actually put forward. What you really want to do and what you do. The fake smiles, the fake politeness. There has to be authenticity in this world. But they don't see that. And they don't want to see that. There's no point for them in seeing that. And so, everything gets blotted out, like your childhood, how nice you were as a child. Nobody cares about that at your job. So, of course, when I said they don't pay attention to your background, of course they do, in the sense that they might want a background check. They might look at your CV to see, where you graduated and what your job experience is. But that's not enough. They don't really care about you as a person. They just care about the image that you put forward. And of course, a lot is missed in that. Like even in court, they look at your priors, but they don't really care about the full person that you are. They don't know that. They can't know that. And there are other issues with the court system, but your parents abuse you, the system abuses you, but only you get picked out. Doesn't really make any sense. I mean, they're the ones who gave you the gun, you just pulled the trigger, but it's somehow only your fault. But society can punish itself, so it punishes you. Even though you're a victim, They can't send the victim to jail, so they call you a criminal. But anyway, the point is, they don't see the full picture. That's why the ledger is dishonest. Because the ledger is dishonest, they can never see who you truly are. Again, were you a good kid? Did you play the clown when you were a kid? How many kids did you make laugh? How many kids did you bully? You know, how kind you were in general to people. You know, did you help your grandma out? Did you pick up a snail from the sidewalk and put it aside so it doesn't get crushed? Like, things that really say something about your character. Most of that is totally missed. Your intentions. Nobody cares about your intentions. And how your intentions are at odds with what you can do. So even though you might have all the right intentions, your brain and your environment fucks with you in such a way that it blocks out what you really want to do. They don't take into account that. They can't, they won't. They also don't take into account, remember, what you don't do. Because again, they can't. They don't look at, oh, I see that you haven't fucked over 15 people like that other guy who's more qualified than you. So we hire you. But that guy got away with it, so it's okay. You know, you haven't broken the heart of 18 people. You don't have like 8 exes. You know, so it's, they just don't really see you. And then, of course, the excuse is why they can't. But again, that's the same excuses with the double nature excuse, that somehow just because it's impossible to not have it, therefore it's okay to ignore it. It's like the consent argument in antinatalism, right? Well, you can't acquire consent, so therefore it's okay to skip it. Now, they always make this mistake of it's either or. Either we do it this way or we do it some worse way. Right? We have to do it this way because it works. Yeah, but we don't have to do it. Like, we can pick the third option, which is to reject this whole game. Right? To not want to perpetuate a dishonest system. And the way to do it is by not having kids, criticizing the system, being a jester. You can do other stuff. You can be a political activist, whatever. But I'm not really interested in any of that. I have my own. I don't need to repeat what other people have already said a million times. It's of course a lot of options are available to you, but the 2 options that I picked is antinatalism and being the jester. That's the way I've been able to try and fight. Just critique the system. Try to be nice, try to be kind, but critique the system. And don't perpetuate the game as much as you can, Don't be dishonest, don't lie, don't fuck around with people. Unfortunately, I've run out of space again, so it's about as far as we got. Sorry I wasn't very high energy today. It's just, I just don't have it. I'm scared, I feel sick. Yeah. Maybe we'll continue in the next one. Don't move where the crowds are headed. Turn the other way and see the open fields of honesty and opportunity. Minimize your input. Maximize your output. Play the role of the jester unabashedly and lift the clowns to jesters.